I don't know if you know this, but I found out through some sources here that there's a lot of, I'm not going to get into every individual conspiracy at this moment, but a lot of conspiracies, theories, like even the Philadelphia experiment and all this
Experiment.
kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned this, Project Bluebeam.
Mm-hmm.
They're based off of speculations of like one author, a lot of these things, or a couple authors. Like Project Bluebeam isn't really an official name. It's a name made up by a guy that was trying to explain the government program, but that's not its official name. And people mistaken it and say there's this Project Bluebeam that shoots hologram. That's not necessarily it. But we've taken these accounts of people that wrote, authors that researched and wrote things, and we took a lot of their say without looking into it. Like if they say we had several witnesses, there was a newspaper article about the Philadelphia experiment, and people verified that this happened and this happened, right? Did you ever know of anybody when they say this to actually look into the archives of the Philadelphia papers and things like that, or even look into the names that were claimed to see if they even exist? People don't do that. That's called research. They take it for granted over the author that supposedly has credibility. However, some of these authors come out later and say, yeah, I made the whole thing up. I was fabricated. I just kind of speculated off of some things I knew and made up the rest. So when I look at these things, unlike other podcasters or researchers who take it verbatim, they report it, they listen to the testimonies and they report it. And that's basically it. And they believe it because it sounds plausible. If you and I, Darren, without a scientific degree, hear someone who either is a scientist or is not a scientist, but is researcher of these things, and they come up with formulas and probabilities and explanations, you and I, who aren't scientists, we'll take their word for it, right? We don't know any better. I don't know if they're talking about, the quantum spectrum of parallel universe. I don't know if what they're saying is possible besides what they say it is. And then we say in our couch coaching chairs, we say, yeah, that sounds feasible. Sounds possible, because we want to believe it, because we want to believe as much as science fiction as we can, because it's interesting, it's exciting. And if somebody comes out and says it and they say they got proof behind it and they say they got testimonies and they got intel, nameless sometimes, you want to believe them, because who are we to question them? We don't know. I mean, maybe they did talk to these people, but that's sometimes all we got, Darren. And when they explain these quantum physics and these metaphysical aspects, I don't know what they're talking, opening up the third eye and opening up the pineal and extracting a frequency. You and I sit here and say, hey, it's possible. But I don't think you or I don't know, maybe you have, I haven't, tested with a frequency modulator and stimulants and diodes and what do they call when they do the cables with the clips on them. I never conducted any physical experiments with it to know if it's actually plausible. It just sounds scientific. So most of the time, I think we tend to take it verbatim just because we don't know any better. Darren, I'm a time traveler, I have documentation that I know quantum physics. I saw Looking Glass. I could describe it to a T. And I was in the military. And I saw the past. And I'll explain to you what I saw. And then I'll tell you what I saw in the future. Now, what's the problem with that? Do you have to believe me, Darren?
Good question.
And if you hear my story, I don't really have to prove it. How could I prove I went to the future besides telling you what I saw? In that fact, if I put a documentary out and wrote a book about it, and did seminars about it, I will be constituted in this age as an expert, even though I've never traveled in time. But what if I really thought I did? What if I took an LSD hit and had a little experience there and hallucinated and saw this vividly, what I thought was the future? And then when I came down, explained it to you and said, oh, I saw World War III. I saw a nuclear holocaust. By the way, Russia and China got together and they blasted the United States. How would you know that's true or not?
Well, if you make a video of it, you'll make it official, and it's
yes, it's documented and it's true.
Yes.
But that's what we go by when we hear these stories, because there's no way to prove it. And the funny thing is these guys that are doing these videos admit there's no way to prove it. They can only tell you what they supposedly experienced. So in this research that I did of 6-7 out, whatever it was, I listened to and read, I narrowed it down. I got a couple guys who, one claims to be an eyewitness, not just an eyewitness. He claims to be in the program. He was in Looking Glass program. Younger guy at the time. He was recruited by the government, by the military. He tells his story. I would love to play the clips, but I'm not going to play all 6 hours of the clips. Sorry. But I just took notes. Okay. So I say even check my research out. So, because I'm only speculating from what they have said. But this is one guy named Bill Wood, and that's just what he goes by. I think his name is Brock something or other, Broder, whatever. But he goes by Bill Wood. He was hired by the military for a special assignment. He had top high clearance. And what he said top high clearance is anything that's top clearance, anything that's clearance, top secret, he's privy to. His agency is privy to advanced or higher top secret. So he's given information that even top secret guys aren't given. But how he explained it is he said the guys at his level have different colors like indigo, red, yellow. They have tags. That's the only areas they're allowed to have knowledge in, but it's higher knowledge than just top secret. So this guy has higher top secret knowledge in this one area. He said his neighbor next to him, who might be a yellow, doesn't have his indigo level information, but he also has top clearance information. But they don't share the information because they're not really allowed to. So each one of the departments has its own sector of information that, together with the collective of those that are above them that assign them certain duties, know the actual result of the experiments, while these guys only, like just do as you're told, just need to know basis. They're on a need to know basis.
In other words, company compartmentalization. Yes,
great. That's exactly it. Just like the networks work and how they use secret societies and different brackets of sectors of society to give them privy to certain information, but not enough that they know anything. And this guy even said, if outside of my information, I don't really know anything else. So he speaks from his firsthand experience. This other guy, David Wilcock, who I'll be quoting from, is an expert in metaphysics. He's a researcher and basically a New Ager and a filmmaker. So he's had eyewitnesses that he's talked to, including a roommate who was part of the Montauk project. And all he has is the information that the people he came across exposed to him. And then we have another source, Project Camelot, who interviews a lot of these secret vault intels and things. But my point is that these guys have an account, whether firsthand or whether secondhand witnesses, and they're the closest I can get to understanding their aspect and their viewpoint of what this looking glass was. And each of them talked to each other after the fact of documenting elsewhere and coming together and kind of comparing notes and realizing they all had the same notes, which gave a credibility to it. Because if you got 3 separate notes, 3 separate witnesses, and they come up with the same thing, you got to say there's kind of some kind of, maybe even if it's something different than what we think it is, at least they believe it. And they have some facts. It might be soft facts, but they have some facts behind it. The one fact is that David Wilcox explains the machine from what it was explained to him. Bill Wood saw the machine. So do you know what looking glass is? Let's backtrack a second and just ask Darren, as a layman, how would you describe it if you heard about it? And
well, obviously it's the military's operation, and it's basically, if you do a Google search, you're not going to get the you're going to have to dig far and wide to find out what it actually is. Of course, they obscure the meanings to hide what their intents are, but it's basically it's to look through time using certain devices, like you said, with the military craft and different things like that. So
the looking glass. Okay, so David Wilcox explained the device and drew pictures of it. I don't have them. Maybe I'll post them, of this like block device, huge block device with tubes, cylinders, chrome cylinders coming out on the top of it. So you have these like domes of cylinders, like kind of like CERN, probably, with the cylinder racetrack type of thing. Well, Bill Wood confirmed that and said he didn't see it together, like he didn't see it operative. It was inoperative when he was hired, but he said he saw the cylinders, he saw the tubes, the chrome tubes coming out of this thing that was stored.